How's it going, everybody? This is Rob Novakast back with another movie review. And with this one, kind of continuing what we were doing on with Neon Genesis Evangelion, we're going to be moving on to the second film, Neon Genesis Evangelion 2.0 or 2.22, You Cannot Advance. This is the follow-up of the last film, and to an extent, it really, to some degree, really sets the tone for, or at least the tone change, or story change, I should say, when it comes down to what's going to happen through the story. Because as I've mentioned in the previous review, they do things a lot differently than the original series did. So, without further delay, why don't we break down this movie and talk about it and give our review of this, because I have a few thoughts. And by the way, just so you guys know too, I end up watching this, or at least rewatching this on Amazon Prime, and they have the 2.22 version, which is I guess the enhanced version. Apparently, I don't feel like that was the case, but I have also watched 2.0. So there's some differences about this, and it really kind of, I guess if anything, talking about both versions as well, I think there's some things that need to be said. So without further delay, why don't we go ahead and get right into it. So, something I should probably talk about is, I don't think I should mention what episodes this focuses on, because to an extent, besides the larger fights, or at least the angel fights, there's really not much else that they focus on when it comes down to the episodes, or at least from Neon Genesis Evangelion. And I gotta say, this is the movie where they kind of split the storyline to a degree and go a vastly different direction, especially with how we start with the third film. But all in all, it starts off with Shinji. Actually, no, sorry, take that back. I take that back. We get introduced to a new character who is very energetic and likes to pilot Evas, or at the very least, is motivated by, I guess, pure... This is weird, because we are talking about teenagers. Because, I'm going to be perfectly honest, this character seemed like they were having, like, way too much fun piloting this Eva. But there's another location that Nerve controls, and they have a angel that was stripped down only to its bones that is trying to escape, and they use this child to pilot a provision unit, or Unit 5, to try to stop it. She does, but ends up blowing not only the Eva up, but also the angel. So that's cool. That, I will say, it's a really cool fight, and good way to start us off. Going after that, we have a moment where Shinji, like a scene from the show where Shinji and Ikari, or Gendo, end up visiting Shinji's mom's grave, though kind of an empty situation, considering, with everything, they're still kind of closed off towards each other. In fact, it kind of makes it more apparent where he talks about how, the grave that his mother is supposed to be in is actually empty, and he's basically removed anything that would remind Gendo of his mother or his wife. So yeah, that's screwed up. After that, Misato is trying to take Shinji back to the city, but another angel attacks, and they can't get to Unit 1 in time. So en route comes Unit 2 with Asuka Langley Suyu. Actually, I think it's a different name. I'm pretty sure, because they have two different names for her in both the the anime, or at least the series, and what we have here for the show. And she actually, and I will say, because I think this was angel number 5 or 6. I think it's 6. I'm pretty sure. Wait. No, 7. I think it's angel number 7. Yeah, that's right. It's angel number 7. And the design of this is actually really cool. And I love this one thing that it does, where its head is moving around like a clock face, or if anything, like the hands of a clock. And when it reaches a certain point, it causes massive destruction in a particular area, or designated area that it chooses, I guess. All in all, it's cool. The introduction for Unit 2 was amazing. I absolutely love it. Though, not a fan. I think I'm not a fan of Asuka, though. I've to a large degree, not a fan of her. But we get introduced to them, as well as one of the other characters who is basically kind of a spy for whoever his sources are, or whoever he works for. He basically is only here for a little bit. He has a bigger role in the series, but we only see him only a little bit for the show, or for this movie, and I don't think he pops back up in the 3rd film, which is sad, because you kind of wonder what happened to him. But anyways, now that we have Rei, Asuka, and Shinji, who, by the way, both of them, like the show, are living together by orders of Misato, so that way they can learn to get along, we end up having more trouble where the 8th angel shows up, which I always liked the design of the 8th angel for the series, but now more so, and more the added effect that they've done with the 8th angel, because this thing looks amazing. It, like, spot on, looks freaking amazing, as well as the combat scene. And by the way, another thing too is the music is so good in this moment. It really is. But they're able to defeat the angel. Shinji ends up getting praise for the first time from his father, which is nice. Though at the same time, Asuka, who is so full of herself, who constantly asks for praise, isn't happy about Shinji getting all the attention to a degree. Which, by the way, there's something else I should mention too, because I'm kind of I skipped ahead of it. There is actually a moment where the spy character, or Ryoji, hopefully I gave the right name, who, by the way, is a old fling for Misato, apparently at some point, reaches back into Japan, or gets back into Japan, because he used to work with Misato and Ritsuko, and he wants to kind of do a school trip with a few of the classmates, as well as our 3 characters, Rei, Shinji, and Asuka. And they have a really cool scene where apparently, and it goes over, like, after what happened with the second impact, where basically all wildlife, or at least wildlife in the ocean, were completely and utterly destroyed. What do you do? And basically what they did was they show us this scene where certain organizations are trying to help remove all the toxin out of the ocean, so wildlife could live in harmony, or live back in the ocean. And there's we see like these large tanks with a variety of different sea life. It is so cool. There is an interesting scene with Ayanami, or Rei, and Shinji, where they talk about these small fish that are in a smaller tank. But even though Shinji is like, we should let them out in the bigger tank, Rei kind of mentions the fact that no, they wouldn't survive out there by themselves. So that's interesting. But going forward, because we talked about the 8th angel, at some point in the story we have a moment where Rei wants to set up a kind of dinner date or at least a dinner for everyone that she knows. More importantly, for Shinji and Gendo, to try to get them reunited. And I think that's, and to an extent, that's what Misato and Ritsuko kind of want, where Shinji has a better relationship with his father. Which, honestly, that would have been cool and interesting to see. But, you know, knowing the show, we're not going to get that. Because sooner or later, after that, we find out that apparently Ava 4, or was it 3? No, it was Ava 4. Gets blown up. And there's speculation whether it was an accident or it was something else. Now, in the show, they kind of specify that it might have been sabotage. But, all in all, either way. Now, going further than that, we find out that one of the new Avas, Ava Unit 3, is being shipped to Japan. Because at this point, it would be better to test it at another location rather than the location that it was already at. So what they end up doing is it's shipped over. Asuka's Unit 2 is put in kind of storage, and they decide to use Asuka as the test person or test pilot for Unit 3. Now here's something that's really interesting, because in the show they used Toji, Shinji's friend, as the test pilot for the Unit 3, and they were classifying him as the 4th child, which was interesting. But instead they decided to keep it within, you know, the characters, which honestly I think it would have been better if they as much as I like Toji as a character and I wouldn't want to see anything happen to him, I kind of wanted that to happen where he was the test pilot, because there is a moment, or I'm just gonna say, he never, like, just kind of to skip ahead so you guys know, or at least quick spoiler, because I don't want to talk any further about 3 till, you know, when I finally get to it. He doesn't show back up at all, as far as I know, when it comes down to the 3rd movie, Toji. So it would have been really good, or like a interesting plot point to set up where it seems like Toji, unfortunately, ends up losing his life. But then again, they do kind of set it up with this other child that shows up, who I believe is Maya. On the top of my head, I'm pretty sure it's Maya. Who shows up, who is the other pilot that popped up for the beginning. And we wouldn't have, unfortunately, if Asuka didn't do it, we probably wouldn't have this person taking the reins in one of the Avas. You know, it just dawned on me, I screwed up the name. It's not Maya, it's Mari Makanami. Hopefully I said that name correctly. But yeah, it's Mari, not Maya, who takes the reins. But all in all, it's still cool. And by the way, Mari is actually, like, probably my favorite character that they introduced. Like, new characters in terms of the story. And I'll explain it in the character section in a little bit. But anyways, when it comes down to, you know, the Unit 3, or now being called the 9th Angel, it kind of plays out almost similar to the show. Besides, you know, Asuka being the one that pilots it. We have a moment where, yeah, I mean, basically, we're to a large degree plays it out. They use the dummy system because Shinji doesn't want to kill Asuka. It basically goes berserk, proceeds to rip apart the entire Ava/Angel. It crushes the pod that the pilot is in with its teeth, and it kind of ends there. Well, actually no, because afterwards we have Shinji kind of losing it, going back to HQ, and proceeding to threaten to destroy HQ with the Ava. By which Gendo proceeds to basically, like, you know, I'm not dealing with this crap. He basically, I think he said, to an extent, changing the pressure of the O2 or whatever it was, or LCL, causing Shinji to lose consciousness. Which it was interesting to see, like, the Eva, like, as it's standing on top of the pyramid for HQ, proceed to just tumble down the side of HQ. I thought that was really funny. But after that, Shinji's done. He doesn't want to deal with Evas anymore, and basically wants to leave, which he does. But at the worst time, because Angel 10 decides to pop up. And this is probably the one that was set up to be the toughest, and could only be beaten by Unit 1. Because they try throwing everything at this sucker. Which, by the way, new design for Angel 10, or the 10th Angel. And I love it. Especially when something terrible happens, and it decides to take another form. But, all in all, afterwards, we have Mari, who takes up the mantle of piloting Unit 2 for this fight. And to an extent, every weaponry that she decides to use for this fight doesn't work. So she kind of pulls one ace out of her sleeve and makes activates a beast mode, which, by the way, is probably one of the coolest things we see with Unit 2. To an extent, it's like when, I guess, to a certain degree, it's similar to when Unit 1 goes berserk, but in a whole different level. And we have a moment where it seems like Mari is going to lose as well, but eventually Rei shows up and proceeds to try to ram a freaking N2 mine into the Angel, which, with the help of Mari, she's able to at least have the N2 mine go, like, basically come into contact with the Angel, but unfortunately does not help their plan or help them succeed at all. In fact, the shelter that Shinji is staying in, which, by the way, wasn't evacuated, so I think he was, like, waiting for himself to die, has Unit 2 crash into it. Mari, who is basically kind of wondering why Shinji isn't piloting the Angel, but kind of figures that he might be just done, proceeds to try to pick him up to get him to safety, only for Shinji, like, when he sees all the destruction that has been caused by this Angel, watch in horror as the Angel proceeds to basically devour Unit 0 with Rei inside and take on a whole totally different form, which, by the way, there's a mention in there's something that is mentioned in the first movie where they talk about Lilith being the first angel that came to Earth. And what they mention is the fact that in regards to anything that comes in the facility, if it's an angel, then everything is set to blow. Like, the moment the angel steps into the compound to try to collect Lilith or come into contact with Lilith, that's it. Everything gets blown up. That's how they set it up. Now, apparently, with the 10th angel eating Rei and the Eva, the energy signature changes for the angel, making it similar by design similar to Unit 0. By which case, at that point, their little plan to blow up the compound if an angel pops up to collect Lilith is basically, it doesn't work. It won't work because, again, the Angel ate Unit 0. So at this point, given kind of no other choice, Shinji goes back to try to, talk to his father and become, once again, the pilot of Unit 1. Which, during this time where Shinji hasn't been around, they've been trying to use the dummy plug, and it isn't working. It won't work for anybody. It won't activate, it won't turn on. The unit is just refusing. Or Unit 1, yeah. So Shinji shows up, and tells his father off and goes to pilot the Eva. At this point, in pure and unadulterated rage to try to, kill this thing for killing Rey or eating Rey. And unfortunately, partway through the battle, he loses power. Or at least the Angel or the Eva loses power. By which his anger continues to grow, and he goes berserk. I think to another extent, where Unit 1 begins to transcend to another plane of existence, and is able to destroy not just the Angel, but also save Rey, or at least that's what we are meant to believe. And everybody is in shock. I think shock and awe, I think it would be the right thing to say, as basically Unit 1 is collapsing the world around them and becoming or creating the third impact. So, and that's how the movie ends. Well, at least if you watch the credits, where one of the Spear of Longinus shows up, or is thrown down into Unit 1, stopping whatever it was doing, and we see Unit 6 basically coming down with of a Kuragu. Oh, hopefully I said his name correct. I know I fucked it up, but anyways, all in all, this I will say, the changes they do with the story is really good, and I enjoy it. I enjoy the change, and to an extent, I'm glad that they deviate from the main story, because it makes you wonder if they were going to do the same thing again, but no, they didn't. And what they do with the story itself is very creative, and I love it. I absolutely love it. Okay, so this one is going to be a really interesting topic, because characters. I guess if anything, start with the initial three, because I do want to talk about Mari. But for now, let's talk about Shinji. To an extent, nothing really has changed with Shinji, besides the whole admiration thing, where he gets a little bit of admiration, but with this one instance of that, as well as what happens right afterwards, when it comes down to him basically thinking he killed one of his friends, it really I have to go back to what I was talking about with what I said with the first movie review, is to an extent you have to wonder what teenagers are really thinking and what they end up going through psychologically when dealing with this kind of situation. If this was a real situation, how would they deal with this emotionally? And sure enough, to an extent, again, I don't want to completely shit on Shinji, but at the same time, I can kind of understand where he's coming from. Especially somebody who, again, was abandoned when he was a child. Or ran away. Either way. It's just... because they keep going back and forth whether he was abandoned or he ran away. All in all, it's just... it's a weird situation with Shinji. Now, Asuka... I will admit there is a good moment with her. But that's right before she ends up, being utterly destroyed by the third angel. But yeah, Nasuka is obnoxious. She is, me all the time. She is selfish, annoying, and to an extent is a character that, kind of delving into the psychological aspect of it, seems somebody who really wants attention and wants to do anything and prove herself to a vast degree. Rey, going further than that, Rey, I have nothing much to say about Rey, besides the fact that they kind of give her an opportunity to show a little bit more emotion than she does, which I will say I enjoyed, especially with moments with her interacting with Shinji, and the whole setup of her trying to create a dinner plan for not just Shinji, but also Gendo, which is really cool. Now, Mari. I want to talk about Mari, because Mari is fun. Mari is a fun character when we first meet her. Like when she's trying to fight the angel, or at least going to fight the angel, she's literally singing before she goes into battle. It is so good. And like I said before, she enjoys this. In fact, if anything, and forgive me if I sound inappropriate, I think she gets off on it. Like, no joke. Again, because we're talking about teenagers. Like, listening to this character and how they enjoy being in the Ava and in combat, it makes you think, is she having too much fun with this? Sure enough, that's what it feels like. And honestly, she's a fun character. I love her design. Also, character with glasses. Fun. That's really cool. But all in all, really, really awesome character. I enjoyed this character, and looking forward to talking about her more in the third film review. Now, they did introduce Riju, but besides a few scenes, there's not much to talk about him. I mean, in the original show, he was an old fling for Misato, as well as kind of a womanizer. But apparently he might go for teenagers, which is creepy. Or actually, I mean, to an extent, I don't think he would go for a teenager, but at the same time, there's some context that makes you wonder. Either way. But going further than that, Misato is kind of the same character, so is Ritsuko. Gendo is Gendo. Not much to talk about all the other minor characters, all in all. If I can gripe on one thing, though. Now, I mentioned that I've watched 2.0 and 2.22, which is the recent one I've just watched. And that I basically watched it on Amazon Prime. And I mentioned this because right now I don't have a DVD player. And I have the first 3 films on DVD and Blu-ray. But unfortunately, I don't have a DVD player, so I can't actually watch the old ones. Now, if you watch a lot of movies, you'll notice key details. Now, I wasn't able to look up the dub for 1 or 2.0, but the dub, it feels like there's a lot more emotion when it comes to the voice acting than there is in the 2.22. To be perfectly honest, listening to some of the characters, it kind of feels phoned in. Especially in moments where a character is supposed to be shouting. And to some degree, I always felt like, I mean, at least watching the first movie and the second movie, I could be wrong, it could be my TV, but it feels like the audio is off. Like, some dialogue moments are basically overshadowed by music. Or really loud, like, background noise. Like I said, I could be wrong. But it sounded a lot more clean in the 2.0 or the theatrical version. But other than that, and I did watch the Japanese dub too, and it's kind of the same when it comes down to both the 2.0 and the 2.22, where it's there. I mean, when it comes down to emotion as well as like kind of putting an effort into the voice acting, it's done really well for the Japanese. It's done really well for the 2.0 version or for the English dub, but for 2.2, it's not the best most of the time. Again, especially with the action points where a character is like yelling or stuff like that. Also, they another thing too is for the 2.0, there's a lot more cursing in this compared to the 2.22, which I thought was odd. But either way, it's interesting. Okay, so what can I say about animation that I haven't already? So, with this time around, especially when it comes down to, the movie, designs for a lot of the angels, for a lot of the characters, are really, really done well. I love some of the redesigns for Unit 2, as well as, if anything, the redesigns for all of the angels. My favorite by far right now is the 10th angel, as well as the 7th angel. No, sorry, the 8th angel. Wait. No, 8th. I was right. It was the 8th. I was like thinking for a second. But yeah, the 10th and the 8th angel are probably two of my favorites for this particular film. Mostly because, again, they used the original design for number 8, but kind of added a little bit more detail. And there's actually a really cool moment with the 8th angel when they're facing off against it, and they did a little bit of an addition to it, where it seems like as they're fighting, a monster inside the monster inevitably reveals itself for the fight, which was really cool. Heck, at this point, I think the biggest strengths for, especially for, the animation too, has to be, if anything, towards the fights, as well as a lot of the background CGI or 3D animation that we see. Because again, I'm very iffy when it comes to 3D animation, but the way they've been able to blend it in, it just looks so well done. It really is. Now, let's talk about the music, because they continue this whole thing where it's more vocals, more operatic to a large degree, and it's amazing. I absolutely love a lot of the tracks that we hear, and especially for the subtle moments, or at least the very simple moments. There's different tracks, if anything, similar to the show. But when we get to the angels, we have a variety of different songs, like new music or score, that really sets the tone and really gets you pumped for certain moments. I think one of my favorites has to be the 2 tracks for when they face off against angel number 8, or the 8th angel. All in all, you really feel the tension, especially watching the scenes. You really feel the tension when listening to these tracks and what our characters end up having to go through. The track at the beginning, which I believe it was called At the Beginning, was really cool. And the track that we hear when the 10th angel and Unit 1 fight is really, really well done. And then let's not forget the redux of the Beast track, which I believe that's what it's called, the Beast, is done also really well. And I will say again, music is A+ for me. Alright, so there is quite a bit to talk about. Story-wise, I love it, especially since, again, it deviates from the initial story from the anime series. Animation is done really well. Music done really well. Some characters are, again, I'm not a fan of Asuka, but I do get Mari, who honestly, again, is probably one of my favorite characters of this film. I really enjoy her as a character. And above all, it's just a beautifully animated movie. It really is. So, final verdict, and I think if anything, because it is a minor thing, I'm not going to dock it for the Asuka thing. I'm going to give Neon Genesis Evangelion 2.0/2.22 a 9 out of 10. And I give it a 9 out of 10 mostly because the fact that in this situation, again, I did watch the 2.22, and unfortunately, I really should be docking it because of, again, when it comes to the voice acting for the English dub and how it feels kind of phoned in to a certain degree. And I hope people don't take that, don't try to freaking go after me for saying something like that. But all in all, it's just my opinion. I ask you guys to listen to 2.0 and then 2.2, and you'll see what I mean. But either way, it's still a good movie. And I would ask you guys to go check out the 2.2 or 2.0 version rather than the one I watched on Amazon Prime. But anyways, 9 out of 10, my final verdict for Neon Genesis Evangelion 2.0/2.2. And with that, that is the end of my video, or the end of my review. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. If you guys have any thoughts, leave in the comments down below. If you have any requests, let me know. I will try to make a list, or at least after this. I'm trying to keep a strict list. So if you guys have anything you would like to add, I will, look at it and then probably put it in the list somewhere. But all in all, I'm really interested, as we grow as a channel, if people have anything they would like me to review, I'd be more than happy to try it out, if I can get a hold of it. But all in all, this one was actually fun to talk about, anyway. But thank you guys again. If you guys can, please leave a like, comment, share, subscribe, all the good stuff. If you guys want to follow us on social media, links are in the description down below, as well as check out our daily content and the weekly podcast. With that being said, this is Novakast signing off. Have a good one. Take care. See you guys in the next video.